Okay, hi everybody. If you can hear me, just put a Y in the chat or the Q&A, please. Okay, we've got a few people that can hear me. Right, so it's the latest in our group therapy sessions. I've got to apologise at the start because Alex Hayward's supposed to be here this week with us, but unfortunately he's had to go to Poland, so we've had to delay that. So Alex is going to be with us in a couple of weeks. In the meantime today, what we're going to take a look at, partly because we're heading into a bit of a slowdown, summertime slowdown, partly because a lot of you are looking at the indices as part of your, looking for patterns and finding the best patterns that you can see and work on. So we're going to have a look at correlated markets. We're going to do that on the live markets. But first, we're going to do a quick update on the two people we've been following. Now, is there anybody here who's doing this group therapy for the first time? Right, Luke. Okay. So let me just give a little bit of a background, right? So what we've been doing, we've been following a couple of guys that I've been working with, and there are a couple of traders who were struggling, and what we've had them do is basically we had them do a period of observation, a 2-week period of observation, where we got them to look for certain things in the market. Okay, so we told them to stop trading, just look for certain things in the market, and based on what they can see, we're going to build a system around that. And now that doesn't mean we're going to be inventing brand new setups or brand new systems. It's not like, well, we're inventing something completely new. You know, they're going to be seeing what most people can see. But we're just trying to focus on, first of all, building on markets that they are already used to looking at times of the day, consistent times of the day that they're available. And then actually seeing, trying to build on what they can see. So if I just go to what, we just look at what they could see. So this is one of the traders, his first week of observation for a particular setup that he was quite interested in taking forward. So obviously, working with these people, if they've already got a setup or something they're interested in watching, then we'll work on that. But if they haven't, that's fine. We'll work on something else. So a good example of this would be, I had one guy, he was trading crude, or he's looking at trading crude. And he was looking at short-term ranges, very short-term ranges that crude gets into. So crude puts in moves and it'll turn to stop in the short-term range, for 4 or 5 minutes. And one trader I worked with, he was actually interested. So I'm really interested in those short-term ranges and just playing on those short-term ranges. And that's what we started him. He started studying that. And we got him to put together a spreadsheet like this. This is from another one of the customers. And we got him to put a spreadsheet. Okay, how many times do you see this behavior you're looking at? How many times do you see these small ranges in crude? When you see them, how big are they? What's the opportunity? When it goes your way, what do you make? When it goes your way, how much you lose, or goes against you, how much you lose, and just to kind of document and go from, I feel that's an opportunity, to actually knowing whether it is an opportunity or not, right? And you don't need to trade something to know whether there's an opportunity there. And in fact, if you do trade it, the most likely thing that will happen is you will not see the opportunity, because once you can see the opportunity and once you can figure out, okay, there is something there I can see in the market, there is something that I can actually leverage, you're still going to get good at executing that edge. And that will take time. So you can expect, even when you see an edge in the market, that to execute on that edge, you're still going to be quite poor when you start. And then over time, you're going to improve. Okay, so over the past few sessions, and we've got recordings, if you look on the Jigsaw blog, you can look at the recording of the last session. We started off with these two guys, two very different personalities, very different backgrounds in life. One's a musician. He's very used to an endeavor where he's had to practice something for a long time to get good at it. One's a businessman who's very used to being in control of things and actually, directing things and pushing things around, which obviously you can't do with the market. So the two guys started, and the one guy fell into this very easily, put his observations down, absolutely no problems. He followed the script. He was, we told him, look, it's just like when you started to play the piano. You've got to get used. You've got to find some behaviors in the market, repeatable behaviors, and really understand them to get the confidence to trade them. The other trader, who's kind of more of a, he's a director, that kind of person, he struggled because he kept changing and he kept trading it. He wanted to do it his way. And anyway, we got both traders through that to the point where, if we just go back, okay, we had the first guy, the pianist, he did his 2 weeks of observation and he's now in sim mode, right? So he found that his behavior was good and now he's in sim mode. So this guy, he just had one thing he wanted to trade. He couldn't make it work. We got him to the point where he can really understand the parameters of that trade, and he's now trading it in sim. Now, what these guys are doing, they're actually creating these spreadsheets here show you the behavior. So in each day, and even while they're sim trading, they're still building this out. You know, how often do they see this behavior? How often does that behavior work, right? Now, at the same time as doing that, they've got an outline of, you know, when this behavior is occurring, right? They know exactly what to look for. So when I look for these things, what happens? So with the first trader, the one who's very disciplined at the start, he's got his rules now, and he knows with those rules exactly what the outcome's going to be. But now, and this has been and I gotta tell you, this is so interesting for me, that the way that people kind of deviate and just want to deviate all the time. But the last discussion we had, he said, okay, I'm sim trading it now, but I'm also watching, I'm also doing this when the market's trending, and I'm doing that when the market's chopping. And I said, well, okay, on your spreadsheet here, which of the things on your spreadsheet are recorded when the market's in a trend, and which ones are when the market's in a range? And he said, well, they're not. That's not a part of the spreadsheet. So we've developed this spreadsheet, we've developed this knowledge of a certain behavior. And then what he's done, he wants to bring in another parameter, right? He wants to say, well, I'm going to do this when the market's trending. And he'll add that one parameter, and then you'll add another parameter and another parameter and another parameter. And eventually, what you'll end up with is not what you're seeing here. You will not end up with the same amount of occurrences. You will not end up with the same success rate. You will not end up with a total ticks profit, because what you're doing is you're actually changing the rules. And if you change the rules, if you change the things you want to look for, if you want to change the rules, the outcome of changing those rules has to be in your spreadsheet or in your observation sheet before it goes into your trading, because otherwise you will never know what the expected outcome of changing those rules. So this guy already knows that if I just follow the rules I have, the outcome is really good. Right, but now we're saying, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this and that, and this guy off the internet said this is a really good thing. But basically, if you make any change, doesn't matter how small it is, it needs to go into your analysis. Now, this isn't something you're going to do for every edge or every trade that you ever take, every setup that you ever take. But almost certainly, if you gave somebody brand new to trading a working setup, within a week, they would come back and tell you it doesn't work because of the execution problem. And that never goes away. So no matter how much that person, how many years that person has as an unsuccessful trader, if they don't get past this, if they don't get past this understanding that you can't keep changing things, it will be a never-ending cycle. In fact, you know, a few years ago in the jigsaw days, in the early jigsaw days, probably 2012, 2013, there was one trader that was part of our community, and he quit his day job in banking, and he took his life savings, and he went to work in a prop firm. We actually helped him. I mean, he wrote a great letter. We kind of I helped him review his letter. Not sure I helped him write it, but he wrote a really good letter to a prop firm in London, and he got into the prop firm. And he was part of our community. And each day he's going to his prop firm and he's coming back to the jigsaw community, telling people how it's going and it's great. And he gets past the training. Now he's living in London, and he's getting £500, which is like, I don't know, $700. It's probably $300 now actually with the pound. But anyway, he was getting about $700, $750 a month living in London. Right, so basically he's like on starvation. He's like on starvation level salary. So he's obviously spending his wages every month. And even in a prop environment, right? Even if in a prop environment, every few days he would come into it was a Skype room we had at the time. Every few days he would come in and he would talk about what is changing. Oh, I'm just looking at his market profile. Oh, I've seen this website that's got this. And every week, and even though he was in a prop firm, he was still doing this. Now, with the prop firm he was in, they did have a good training program, but they also let you, you've got to, once you get through the training, they also let you you've got to earn your live account, right? So he was in this process of earning his live account. And I remember actually having a chat with him on the Friday, and he's really dejected. He's like 4 months in, he's 4 months after his training, and he's still not profitable. He's still not got to his live account. And I'm not talking about a combine. I'm talking about a bricks and mortar, sit in the office, prop shop with millions and millions of dollars available to trade. They don't need you to trade. They've got fairly relaxed rules about risk. They will let you take risk if you prove you can keep it under control. And I remember on the Friday I talked to him and he said, I said, look, just stop changing things. Everybody's telling you, everybody's in the Skype chat, they're all telling you the same thing. Stop changing things. And then he says, yeah, you're right. I've got to stop changing things. And on a Monday, he said, look at my new chart setup. I've decided to change from this chart to that chart. And it's like, well, just on Friday, on Friday, we just sat down and chatted on Friday. We had a heart-to-heart for an hour on Friday, and you agreed not to change anything. And he said, I'm just changing the time frames on my charts. And it's like, that is the definition of changing something, right? And he couldn't focus on one thing. But basically, the end result of that keeping on changing stuff was he basically couldn't, obviously at £500 a month, he couldn't stay in that prop firm anymore. He had to leave. They didn't kick him out. They had plenty of seats. It wasn't really cost them any money. But, they let him stay. That particular prop firm would let traders stay until they starved. Other prop firms would kick them out. And the thing is, it doesn't matter what you change. So, we're putting these people through the process. And this guy, he's not done anything wrong. But it's just a really common thing that just to change this or change your charts. I don't like my screens. I've got 3 screens. I want 4 screens. And none of it is going to help. Absolutely none of it will help. Right? The only thing that will help is actually really getting to know an edge in the market and to know a market behavior and just sticking with it. Then once you get the first one profitable, you kind of get it at that point. You get that you can't keep changing things, and then you move forward and you move forward, and you become the kind of trader that doesn't need the spreadsheets and all these kind of things. And one prop firm I talk to, they get the new traders. They have to review at the end of every day. They have to review all their trades, right? But they don't ask the guys who are making the big money there, the guys who are really, really, earning real serious money there. They don't have to do that, right? So it's just a part of the phase in development. But the bottom line is, any change, no matter how small, you have to go into the analysis. You have to analyze how that change is going to affect your edge, understand it, and decide whether you want to implement it. So if you've got all this stuff, and I know a few of you are doing this, you're going through this exercise of doing the observation for a few weeks, writing down, figuring out your edge. Once you've done that, stick with it. If it works, stick with it. You've got to refine your execution skills next. And it seems like a lot of people think that, but I'm not doing anything, I'm not changing anything, I'm not learning anything, so I'm not moving forward. That there always has to be something busy going on. But sometimes it's just about repetition. So we'll see how he gets on with this. I think the message got through. But we'll see how he got on with it. And I was kind of surprised because he was the one who was the pianist. He was the one who it seemed, you would think, had the personality more attuned to just sticking with something. But again, it might be that you think, no, he just thinks that, there's still a reasonable degree of wiggle. But again, and I would say there is a reasonable degree of wiggle, but if you've already got something documented that works, changing it needs to be documented too. Now, our other trader, he actually struggled with the observation phase. So he struggled with the observation phase because he wanted to trade it and he wanted to do this and he wanted to do that. And he actually ended up finding a number of setups. And again, just 2 different people. So with the second trader, we actually had to decide which of the setups he would focus on. So he's now focused on one setup, one market. There's not much more to tell you about what they're doing other than that. So they're now going through it at sim. You know, they're now going through that process of not being very good and trying to improve. So in the next group therapy, I'm hoping we've got a bit more information to tell you about these guys. Now, just one question before we go on to the correlated markets. Recent webinar showed how a trader's P&L can rise from a few dollars a day to many thousand. For those to make it to making thousands, are they usually swing traders, or can scalpers also become very profitable? Swing trading, I guess both the terms swing trader and scalper have got a lot of wiggle in their definition, right? So the guys that I know that are trading, that end up being a large percentage of a particular market, you know, the one guy I knew that was like 30% of one of the Singapore markets, they're all trading off the dome. They're not swing trading. They're basically going with it. They're going with the market a lot of the time. They're not always putting in massive days, but they're, you know, generally speaking, trading multiple markets, you know, getting very big in particular markets, pushing markets around. Nothing to do with swing trading, no charts, nothing like that. So I think if you went to a prop shop, you'd be very surprised at what they're actually looking at. Okay, now